This week on the Markcast, a couple special guests. We have Jake Maier from Stamps.
We have the Mayor, Jake, joining us. We got the Mayor.
So yeah, I mean, I'm used to it. It's been a football nickname, that's for sure. I think it helps when you're also the quarterback. You know, you're kind of the leader. You know, I guess people might think of it as kind of the guy in charge. So I guess Mayor makes sense to me. So I'm just a big believer in if anybody's going to give you a nickname, it needs to come from the outside. It needs to come from people. I'm not in the nickname yourself.
We also have Kristina Costabile coming on from CFL.ca.
Games aren't won on paper. Obviously, we know that. But you look at a roster like that, and you're talking about BC, and you're looking at all these receivers that they've already signed, and there's rumors going around that they might even offer to Kenny Lawler. Like, you're looking at all of these things, and you're like, wow, they're going to be amazing. And then I love when, like, you actually hit the field, and if it pans out, awesome. But sometimes they hit the field, and you're like, oh, this is why football is not played on paper.
Yeah. And then a lot of CFL transactions, some USFL contract details leaked.
We have all the fan football NFT fiasco stuff. That's always fun. Yeah, our big leaked contract detail, player pay, all the things we've been waiting for came out right before we recorded. I'm very glad, very appreciate USFL working. XFL is not working with our record schedule because we don't know when the hell that news is coming out. But at least USFL is giving us freaking news when we need it to record on the podcast.
That is true. And on that note of CFL transactions, again, I'm very happy for my boy Carey getting that bag, the highest paid American running back since Ricky Williams. It's a big thing for Kadeem. So shout outs to him. We're going to be talking about all those CFL transaction news and a lot more this week on the Markcast.
BC Lions buying a Grey Cup.
Welcome to the show. It's Friday once again. Another Markcast ready to go. Good morning, everybody. Hello.
Paul, could I interest you in some NFTs?
No, you may not. I have no desire to sign on that train.
Wow, that was that. We'll talk about that at the end of the show. The fan control football that came in as a little bit of a delight in my life. I
really don't want to talk about the NFTs, but I mean, I guess
the unraveling of the NFT mint chain, blockchain, Ethereum, whatever, with the fan control football. So,
all right, what we got coming up this week?
Yeah, it's a big show. So we have our big breaking, USFL leaked contract information. Thankfully, that came down tonight before Paul got home, which is, we appreciate that. So USFL sent out player contracts. We kind of have all that stuff. I already formatted the show. So we're going to do CFL. And then we'll come to USFL after the break. We were talking to the mayor, Jake Maier of the Calgary Stampeders. Jake is the one that came in for Bo Levi last year when he had this bummed, foot, ankle. Jake's great. Jake's going to be like the future QB in Calgary or wherever he wants to end up. And he's back in Calgary this year. Happy to have him back there. And then Kristina Costabile is coming on. I've been trying to get Kristina on for a long time. She's a great writer, analyst with CFL.ca, writes for the league and just has tons of good stuff. So I've been trying to get Kristina on for probably 6 months. So she's finally opened up her schedule and we really appreciate her coming on. So good stuff.
Cool stuff. Also, the usual, you were texting me earlier, like, thank God there was some USFL news. So we have that coming up as well. So we'll talk about that after we talk to our guests. Anything else you want to plug before we get going?
Yeah, friend of the show, I got my James Wilder Jr. autographed sweatshirt. If you guys, you can hit him up on Twitter. James, got me one of these for thanks for coming on the show. These are great. It's so hot right now. I've been running around with all our breaking news. I didn't want to put it on, but it's phenomenal. It's autographed by James. So hit James up. And then I had a story. We've talked a lot about Victor Cui, with the Edmonton Elks coming up, the new president, CEO, all that. There was an interaction I saw on Twitter this week. Victor, multimillionaire president of the Elks, basically talking to another guy on Twitter being like, hey, where did you get that Edmonton Twitter banner you have? It's really cool. And the guy's like, oh yeah, I know, I've had it for a long time. Which is like, I'm going to make some more of these. We need to do more of this. And I just thought it was so cool to have the president of a team interacting with a fan on Twitter being like, hey, where'd you get that fan art? We should make some more of that. I'm going to work on that and get some more. I just thought it was such a cool breath of life. Literally, it's his first week on the job here, Victor Cui. So.
Very cool. Also, are you a Washington Commanders fan, by the way?
I am, y'all. You know, I'm a Washington football team fan. We have Taylor Heineke, all that. Do you have any takes on this? Because it came out, the Washington Commanders. I've seen a lot of San Antonio AAF marks and stands coming out being mad about it because that was their slogan, hashtag, was take command. That's Washington Commanders and the Washington football team. Do you have any thoughts on that?
It's an AAF that was in business for like 4 weeks. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm serious. So I got a lot of
serious. I'm serious.
Yeah, I am too. I am very true about that. Listener Max was
let's say the Kentucky Wildcats were before the Arizona Wildcats. They're going to sue them too and get all pissed off that Arizona's using the name Wildcats. Dumb. You were around for 4 weeks. Dumb.
I said if there were 20 people making the decisions for the Washington Commanders, less than 1% of those people, less than one of those people probably knew that the AAF slogan was take command.
And by less, you mean zero.
One or zero. Anyway, and then this XFL news could drop anytime. We're talking about this. We're going to, air this episode. But, if you're listening to this in XFL news, your boy Reed might be on a live stream at some point talking about if we ever do get this news. I don't know.
Realize that I am also home from work tomorrow. So we could both hop on.
That would be interesting. Yeah. This could be Friday. It could be Monday. It could be 2 weeks from now. It's kind of like a bomb.
All right, cool. That being said, we're going to move on to the news of the week. First things first, my Toronto Argonauts, shout outs. We've re-signed quarterback McLeod Bethel-Thompson. Naylor's reporting it's for $400,000 hard money. It's probably going to be his last contract in the CFL. He's 33 years old. Any thoughts?
This was a mix this week because we all love McLeod. Everyone, he's dreamy. He's a good face for the league. He's a strong worker, all that. But there's been a lot of the Argos are just throwing a lot of money at a mediocre quarterback. And I thought that was weird. It's like, we love McLeod. We want him to get paid, but then we're making fun of the Argos for doing it. I just thought it was a weird dichotomy there.
Pick one. You can't do both. It's like the sweating guy, the meme, the button. You got to pick one. Either you're happy or is a mediocre quarterback. Which one is it going to be? You could have Jeremiah Masoli, who I think is not as good. What's going to be?
Well, and we have a story about Jeremiah coming up. No, I think it's great for McLeod. I mean, you need to sell. You need to sell the team. You have a face of the franchise. You have someone that management really believes in. So I think it's great.
Yep. Next story. My homie, my boy, Kadeem Carey, former CDO prospect at the University of Arizona, running back, re-signing with the Stamps, according to a report from Dave Naylor.
That it's the biggest contract for American running back since Ricky Williams.
Shout outs to Kadeem Carey, a great kid. I used to cover him when he was in high school. Big shout outs to Kadeem. I'm very passionate about my Arizona guys. My Arizona Wildcats tonight in men's basketball just whooped up on that UCLA ass. So I'm kind of gloating a little bit. It's been a bad day for LA area basketball. The Lakers just lost the game to the Inglewood Clippers. So it's been a bad day for LA-based basketball teams. I'm just kind of on an Arizona high right now. So shout outs to Kadeem Carey grabbing that bag up there in Calgary. Do we have any idea on how much that money is?
The highest, because of course the contracts are never, the money, it's always reports that come out. It's that we never release any of this stuff. Dave Naylor is incredulous about the fact that they need to release these dollar figures, but
he's right.
Yeah. Think of how much offseason speculation there is in every other league with can they afford this guy? Can they afford that guy? You can't do that in CFL. We have no idea.
Look what Yankees fans are doing. Is Hal going to open up the pocketbook for Carlos Correa, or are we going to go with, Andrelton Simmons in the Bronx? You don't know. We play this game all the time, and we are very versed on our luxury taxes, our salary caps, that kind of thing down here in America. And it sucks the CFL isn't just as open, because then that would allow a lot of people that are insiders like Naylor and Jim Mullen and these other people to kind of guesstimate where everybody stands in terms of re-signing people. And they can kind of make more educated guesses if they just open up the transparency. So I'm sure it's going to be a great contract for Kadeem. Happy for him.
Yeah. Speaking of a running back that might not be good contract, Andrew Harris, right? He was the big, MOP and all that with the Blue Bombers. They have yet to come back with him. They're re-signing, all these different guys, right? Winnipeg, Adam Big Hills of the world. Kenny Lawler might be moving on. We're talking about Drew Wodlarski coming up here, but Andrew Harris still isn't going to be signed yet. Farhan says it's likely to stay that way. There's been no formal contract negotiations so far. Andrew Harris was hurt, came back, got hurt again, didn't really hit it up. But you see this quote here? They said that basically coming out of the COVID season, Harris was admittedly distracted, and in his preparation wasn't necessarily all that it needed to be. Lalji alleged that led to some frustrations in the building. There's a belief it may have contributed to injuries that forced him to miss a large portion of the season. I mean, he's like it's him and I'm blanking on. Please vanish from it. No, hang on.
Also on the Blue Bomber note, they've agreed to a 2-year extension with national receiver Drew Wolarski. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. 6'2", 225-pound receiver out of the University of Minnesota is returning to them for the 5th season in 2022. He started all 14 season games in 2021 and played in the final and the Grey Cup. So congrats to him.
Brady Oliveira. I always forget the last name. I knew. So Brady Oliveira. He's kind of he's like their number 2 running back that you could slot into that number 1 if Andrew Harris doesn't come back. He played a lot when Harris was out. Also,
Blue Bombers re-signing wide receiver Rasheed Bailey for the 2022 season. Yeah.
Well, but see, here's the interesting thing. So they're resigning him, and that was kind of they needed to because Kenny Lawler was their outstanding guy. And now BC Lions, this is reportedly is coming out. They have offered $250,000, right, to Kenny Lawler to come over to the Lions. Now, if you remember, Lucky Whitehead was on the show a couple weeks ago. Lucky Whitehead was getting $205,000. That made him the highest paid wide receiver. Like BC is like buying a Grey Cup, and I'm here for it a lot.
Because they're not America's CFL team, but it's cool that they're buying these players up and trying to load up and trying to win something. And I mean, if Winnipeg is not re-signing their key elements, their key players, that division, the West Division, is going to open right up. It's going to open right up.
Well, the interesting thing is because you have Nathan Rourke, right, who is so much less costly than Michael Riley was, right? So you go from Riley, who was the highest paid quarterback, he retires. I think Nathan Rourke's on like an $80,000 salary, right? That gives you so much more again, stuff people want to talk about with all these contracts. You have so much more money. Like, we have $600,000 to spend on wide receivers because we're only paying $100,000 for the quarterback. I mean, it's way different.
Be great to know what those numbers are, specifically what those numbers are. Also, BC Lions have signed Canadian receiver Javon Cotloy, I should say. Cody. I'm sorry. I'm seeing the second T is looking like an L to me. My astigmatism's kicking in fierce. 2-year contract extension through the 2023 season. He was scheduled to be a free agent on the 8th, and that's not going to happen now.
Yeah, again, BC making moves. I talked with Kristina about this coming up in our interview as well. I said if America had a CFL team, they would also try to buy a Grey Cup. So that's good.
It's not America's CFL team.
This is interesting. So, Vernon Adams was re-signed with Montreal, right? So that kind of opened up. So Matthew Schultz was kind of the key backup there. He is expected to hit the free agency. And then they're also signing Dominique Davis. I had these two flip-flopped here, but Dominique Davis, who is on the REDBLACKS, is coming on to back up for Vernon. Interesting moves. Montreal has been kind of quiet in the offseason so far.
Elks and REDBLACKS are battling for veteran free agent quarterback Jeremiah Masoli. Interesting that he would be a target of a bidding war, but let's keep going with it.
Two. You have...
and the Elks have already given Nick Arbuckle, a contract, right? Like, he's already on. Why do they need... I don't know.
Yeah, Kristina talks about this. Chris Jones, he gave $100,000 signing bonus to Nick Arbuckle, right? He's coming in. He's still because Masoli is more of that mobile quarterback, right? And then Sean Burke, who is the star of the new REDBLACKS Behind the R docu series, right? They're kind of doing that Hard Knocks thing. He also has his eyes on Masoli. It is weird, let go without any cause at all from Hamilton, and that was the prettiest girl at the dance with these two other teams.
Remarkable. On some negative news, I guess, former writer John Ryan accusing Randy Ambrosie of trying to destroy Canadian content after he was being replaced by a global punter. Interesting stuff. He goes on to say the way the rules work right now with Randy Ambrosie trying to destroy Canadian content in CFL, they bring in these global roster spots. If you employ the global players, that gives you an extra Canadian spot as well. League minimum right now is $65,000 in the CFL, and you can actually play the global players less than the league minimum, Ryan explained. Interesting.
Former Seahawk, right? Super Bowl champ, John Ryan. Yeah, he says, I'm not crapping on the global players. We had 3 of them. I absolutely love them. But it is odd that you're like, well, and I'm sure John Ryan is not cheap, 40 years old coming in, very tenured player. But you go, well, we're going to get rid of him. We're going to, cheaper global guy, and then we can sign another Canadian. So
it's business, though. It really is business, John. It really is business. Rough Riders giving quarterback Cody Fajardo a $170,000 signing bonus in exchange for a small pay cut next season.
Cody can just not catch a break. Cody comes back, takes his team to the West Finals, cannot catch a break. But yeah, he's going to get $467 in hard money, max of $485. They're trying to free up some money, right? They got Gainey, that whole thing coming up there. Remember, we've been talking like Saskatchewan, they are trying to buy a Grey Cup because they're hosting the Grey Cup. And we've had Glenn Suter talk about that before, that he is actually encouraging them to cheat and pay over the salary cap to ensure that they have a Grey Cup there in Rider Nation.
Okay. Moving on, I should say. Let's see here. I lost the document. Great.
Wow. Ed Gainey is kind of a fan favorite. He is stepping down from the Riders. He tweeted out, he said, thanks for everything, Rider Nation. People were asking him, they go, well, are you coming back? What's going on? He goes, that's how much passion I have for the game. Unfortunately, I feel like it's not the same. It's the same reason why I'm not with the Riders anymore. It's kind of weird.
It is weird.
Kind of weird that you have a player that go, I love the game so much, I'm not with this team anymore.
That's bizarre.
But he's here. We have, he's giving Cody a pay cut. They're trying to re-sign Duke Williams. That's kind of the other story I have in here. Duke was the big wide receiver. Remember, they brought in with Cody was, bitching and whining that he didn't have enough talent to catch his ball. So they brought in Duke Williams. So, let's get rid of Ed Gainey. Let's re-sign Duke Williams. We're making Cody take a pay cut. All these little microtransactions. But Riders, that's something weird there that Ed Gainey is stepping out like that. That's a lot.
Elks offensive lineman Matt O'Donnell retiring after 9 seasons in green and gold. He was their longest serving player and has finally announced his retirement. So happy trails to him.
130 regular CFL games.
That's pretty good.
Regular season, not regular. No CFL game is regular. It's the regular season.
And David Letterman supporting Dorothy's Winnipeg Blue Bombers, rocking the toque, as they call it north of the border. We call it a beanie here. It's a toque there. He's rocking that Winnipeg Blue Bombers toque. So did Dorothy have any thoughts about that?
I just saw the stage. I mean, does this do anything for you? Is this exciting? No. Does that
David Letterman? It's always going to be great to me. I love David Letterman. I think he's great. But is David
Letterman the stereotypical that he is the CFL's customer and we need to get younger people? Is he who we expect?
That's a fair point. That's the target demo. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to throw to Reed talking to Jake Maier and Kristina, of course. Thank you for finally coming on the show, and we'll check in with them. We'll talk to them and come back. We're going to talk some USFL, some XFL stuff, and I got a little, we got a little kind of related story that I added late to the document here. We're going to talk about too, kind of related to XFL. You'll see what we're talking about here in a bit.
We have the mayor, Jake Maier, recently resigned with Calgary Stampeders. Jake, do you like that name?
I'm used to it because in college it was a similar nickname. So yeah, I mean, I'm used to it. It's been a football nickname, that's for sure. I think it helps when you're also the quarterback. You're kind of the leader. I guess people might think of it as kind of the guy in charge. So I guess Maier makes sense to me. So I've gotten used to it over the years. So I don't mind it. I'm just a big believer in if anybody's going to give you a nickname, it needs to come from the outside. It needs to come from people. I'm not in the nickname yourself business, that's for sure. But I've gotten used to it, so I don't mind it.
I'm excited for this because I was telling, Max in Calgary, we've gotten into all this CFL stuff, through the XFL and everything. So we're Americans. We're learning all about all this stuff. So I've heard the legend of Bo Levi, right? I mean, everyone knows Calgary, but I turn on, week 3 and I see you, head to head against Vernon Adams, right? Playing this incredible game down to the wire. So this whole season, I've watched you with great interest because I'm like, this is what I think of Calgary quarterbacks. You are who I think of just because I'm a dumb American. What was it like, kind of coming in, dealing with all of this, being thrust into the spotlight like that?
Yeah, you just try to block out any of the things that might be limiting you or what people think are limiting you. I've been working, since college for these types of opportunities. So truthfully, it was nothing new in terms of, being on the field, being under the bright lights, having the expectations from your teammates and people around you. So none of that was really new. Getting adjusted to the game is definitely different. The speed of the game, the waggle motion, the extra player on the field defensively, the size of the field, and then ultimately everybody's favorite, 3 downs instead of 4 is definitely an adjustment, to say the least. So that first quarter felt a little bit faster than maybe the last few years or so from my experience of playing the game. But when I was able to settle in, I felt really comfortable. My teammates did a good job of picking me up. So it's definitely an adjustment, but you try to stay consistent in your work ethic and preparation, and the rest takes care of itself. So it was exciting, man. It was a great experience, to say the least.
A lot's been talked about, Calgary, coaching staff, they're right, personnel staff, it's like quarterback factory, they know how to develop, they know how to support their players. Did you feel like you were, taken care of in that way and given the tools? And what was it like, with the coaching and everything else?
I was definitely taken care of. During that pandemic year where we weren't able to play, our quarterback coach, Coach Maier, had myself and the rest of the quarterbacks doing Zoom install sessions. So everything that we can control mentally and from a preparation standpoint, I felt great about. It was just a matter of hey, put yourself on the field and physically get the job done. And that's obviously easier said than done. And the experience of maybe not being in those moments as a rookie, is definitely a learning curve, and definitely something you have to fight through and try to not make the same mistakes over and over. But from a preparation standpoint, they take pride in quarterback play and playing at a high level. That's really the standard, for the Stampeders for decades now. And it starts at the top. Our general manager being an ex-quarterback, NFL coach, CFL coach, Coach Dickinson, having a great resume and a great CFL career in his own right. And then obviously Bo and everything that he's accomplished, and he's not done yet. And we look forward to seeing, how that plays out as well. So the standard is there. And that's something that I was a huge fan of. And that's kind of what drew me to even coming back again was, I want to be in that type of environment where quarterback play is held to a high standard. And we're all just going to get better from it, I think.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about your re-signing too. But in terms of, obviously you prepare, right? Great college career. You come in. Were even you surprised with how well you did? I mean, and especially the second game with Winnipeg, the completions, right? It was like 17 in a row. Was that, or is that just expected? I mean, of how well you prepare?
Yeah, I mean, you just hope that all the preparation you put in leads to positive results. And, being in such a team sport, it's very dependent on who's around you and how well we're playing as a unit. So, the individual things, the success, the failures, I had a little bit of both. I was blessed to, learn from some tough failure and then experience some decent success early on. So I don't know. I try not to focus too much on, individual expectations of, completions or yards or touchdowns. I just think it's prepare to play the best football you can possibly play for your team. And, ultimately, if that results in some positive production, then great, right? It's a production-based business. So you have to perform at a high level, and you ultimately, have to lead your team to wins, which truthfully, in the 3 games I was able to start in, as a team, we won once, and that bothered me a little bit. I'm a very competitive person, and in those opportunities, I know guys look to me to play at a high level and play well in the fourth quarter and put ourselves in a situation to succeed as a team. So that's what drives me. That's what keeps me hungry for sure. to be the best I can possibly be for the team, whenever my number's called.
To come in, rally the team right, kind of, you put everyone on your shoulders. We're going down. Is that something that you're used to, kind of being in that spotlight? Because it is, Calgary, it's known, and Bo, and like all the history and all this stuff. But then you're coming in, not stepping in the shoes, right? But there's there's a level of excellence, right, that's kind of expected there.
Yeah, those things don't get to me truthfully. I hope to be at a point in my career where the expectations I have for myself, and I'm going to talk a lot about preparation and personal growth. Like that's really what I try to focus on. Those expectations I have for myself are never going to be bigger than anybody else's. And that's I think any pro athlete would say that. I think it's pretty cliche, but it's the truth. So that type of external pressure that doesn't enter my focus really, because it's just not it's not gonna help me in any way. I want to be able to continue to just get better every day, and I know a lot of people say that, but if you can really focus on that in the big moments and the high pressure, quote unquote, high pressure situations, you're going to be better for it. So, I just try to keep my head down and focus on each individual task at hand throughout the week, so that when we step on the field, we're prepared and we feel good about it and we're confident, and we're not listening to the outside noise of, you have to follow up this guy or that guy. Like, we're all our own players, right? So, we're all making, legacies for each other and as a team. So that's all we can focus on.
How was the rest of the season for you? I mean, I think, Calgary was kind of written off really early, ended up making a deep run, right? You got to play again near the end of the season. Going through your first CFL season, what was that like?
The marathon. You come from high school football where, it's like 10 games and then, you get your playoffs. And college football is a little bit more than that. But, even in a shortened season where it was 14 games, I mean, it takes a lot of mental toughness and, just mentally, allowing yourself just to kind of work week for week, flush what happened last week, learn from it. And now we have to move on, right? You can't get too high, get too low. I mean, it's really a mental grind, I would say, but I love it. It's like you have to experience it to find out, hey, is this for you? Like, can you handle this? Is this what you enjoy doing, waking up every day? And the answer is 100% yes. It's cool to be, kind of in that marathon. I'd like to think of it and just continue to challenge yourself to get better. And then hopefully you're playing your best football in, October, November. And I felt like we did that as a team. I really do. There's a couple things that, the ball just didn't bounce our way a little bit at the end. We played a highly competitive road playoff game and we were a couple plays away. And that's how football is. That's how professional football is. It's like, you can never, you don't really want to say like, oh man, we're so close, we're right there, because yeah, I mean, that's how it is. That's it. Any league, you're really only a couple plays away and you just put your best foot forward and hope that you're on the right side of it, the next year. So it was a great experience. I loved it. Everybody made me feel extremely comfortable in that building, and I look forward to year 2. So.
Yeah, it's great. It's long and it's such a season, and I couldn't imagine, for the people covering there, they're watching. I couldn't imagine, playing. It's like 1% of how hard it is to actually be playing in all these games and going on the road and traveling across the country. I mean, it really is a grueling. I mean, even more so, I know the NFL has expanded out, but the CFL season and just how long it is and why it really is its own beast.
And we as quarterbacks, we have it the easiest in terms of just the physical toll that's on us. I mean, I can only imagine our offensive linemen or guys in the trenches, defensive linemen, linebackers. I mean, they're putting their bodies, and their health on the line week in and week out. This year was 14 weeks. Next year's 18 weeks plus playoffs. Now you're looking, you make the Grey Cup. That's 20, 21 weeks of football. And, that drags on to about 6 months of the year, when you factor in training camp. So yeah, man, it can be grueling. It definitely can. So you do your best to manage yourself properly. And like I said, quarterback wise, we have it we have it easier than most of our teammates. Ours is, a lot of arm care, making sure that, hey, maybe physically, if you're not feeling 100%, you're doing the rehab necessary, and you're putting maybe more energy into the mental side of the game, your visualization, your mental prep, your studying of the game plan and watching film. So, every week's different, and you have to attack it accordingly. And, make sure you're ready to perform, because once you step on the field, nobody cares, right? Like nobody's going to make excuses for you. I think it was Michael Jordan or something that said, if you're in the arena, you're 100%, no ifs, ands, or buts. And you got to be ready to perform, because, we have great fans that pay money to come watch us play, and we have to be ready to go and give it everything we got.
Deciding to return to Calgary, right? Re-signing. I think that most people are, at least I assumed, right? You want back up there again. What decision to re-sign? I guess I could preface a lot, but why choose to return back to Calgary and be a part of that team?
First and foremost, I love the team. I love our coaches, and I love living in Calgary. We've traveled on the road. We've gone to different places. And, obviously we're only there for a weekend, but, there was something just special about Calgary that was appealing to myself and my family. We're very comfortable there. You're there we've been there for 6 months, and you kind of know, like, okay, these are the places to eat. These are the roads to take. This is where you can do this, do that. So I think people forget sometimes, like, that everyday life, a lot of the time plays a huge role, because at the end of the day, we're all people. And, we want to wake up in a city that we're proud of and that we feel comfortable in. So that played a big part. And then obviously when you make decisions like this, these career decisions, for the most part, they're selfish, in a good way. You got to, take care of yourself, take care of your family, make sure that, you have the discipline to view this, as a business, and that you're, however you feel whatever you set your value at, you hope the organization meets that. And I felt like for myself, my family, all those boxes were checked. And now we have to go produce on the field, and we got to go show, everybody, who we are as a team individually. And so those are just the things that just kind of go through your head, and then you come to a decision. And I felt like we made a good one.
Do you feel like you're set up now to grow in that environment, right? To continue that path, and where do you kind of see yourself in the next 2-3 years? It's tough.
Well, I see myself becoming a better player, better leader, more comfortable, interacting with my teammates, getting to know them at a deeper level. But 2-3 years down the road, it's always hard to know exactly where you're going to be. I like to compartmentalize a little bit slower than that. What am I going to be tomorrow? The next week, next month. What's your daily process? What's your daily rhythm? Your routines? So I try to stay more in that world, truthfully. The next 2 or 3 years, I'd love to be a starting quarterback in this league. If I were to summarize it, I want to be a leader for an organization. I want to be somebody that, the city can get behind and the organization can put their trust in. But I think that's all of us. I think anybody that plays quarterback wants that. We want that type of role, that type of, leadership role. That's just how we're all wired. We're all competitive. We were all, our top players in high school and in college. So that level of competitive drive and desire to be, the leader of the team never goes away. But with that being said, I'm very patient. I'm very humbled. I'm very fortunate to, have a contract in pro sports. I know how rare that is, and I don't take that for granted one bit.
Last question for me. What's cool about the CFL, I think especially, is how much the people that watch it, and especially listen to shows like ours, really care, right, about the players, and what they're going through and everything in the offseason. So you're back in California now. But peek behind the curtain here. Like, what do you have going on the next 6 months? Getting ready to go. What's your life kind of look like outside of the CFL?
My life is still very simple. Fortunately, I'm very young. I'm turning 25 in the next couple months. No kids yet. I know my fiance and I are trying to figure out a wedding down the road here in the next 10 months or so. So we live pretty simple lives. We're both just very focused on just our careers and working hard every single day. And then when we're not working hard, it's just a lot of family time. So, being American players and my job is out of the country, I don't get to see my family for, that amount of time. So it's just overloading on family time. I get to watch my brothers. My middle brother coaches with my dad, and they're both college softball coaches. My youngest brother is a junior college pitcher. So, I'll be able to go to their games and support them like they've supported me. So very, very simple life. Hang out with some friends every now and then if we get some time. I do a lot of golfing. Golfing's a big hobby of mine. So, enjoy this kind of simplicity of an off season as a young player. And then obviously as the years go on, we'll have more on our plate, but that's where I'm at right now.
Well, that's good. Well, congratulations on the engagement. I'm a wedding vendor in my real life. So if you ever need any wedding planning advice, I'm happy to share that along. Jake, I appreciate your time. I want to hitch my, truck to this wagon now, right? I see big things in the future, and I really appreciate you taking the time. It was an exciting season.
Thanks a lot, Reed. I really appreciate the support. We're fortunate to have people like you covering us. So really appreciate it.
Thanks. Well, I'm excited today. We have Kristina Costabile from CFL.ca. I always accidentally say CFL.com. How are you doing today?
I'm doing so well. How are you? Thanks for having me.
It's good. Yeah, good to connect here. After the season, this is the stuff I like. I mean, I tell people, the games and everything, but it's all of this like arms race, right? We're trying to acquire all the talent. How is everything going for you?
It's good. Busy, as you can imagine. Like you were just saying, there's lots of talent out there trying to re-sign for free agency. We're 4 days out now? I don't even know what day of the week it is anymore. But it's going well. It's exciting. This is one of my favorite times of the year too, just because free agency is fun. Mostly because it's kind of like a guessing game for all of us. Like, where are people going to go? Are they going to stay? Are they going to leave? And then it also just leads right into combine season, which is one of my favorite things too, where, the younger prospects who have CFL aspirations are really kind of put in the forefront for us. So this is like my favorite part of the off season, like the February, March. And then it's kind of like a lull until you're waiting for training camp to start in May.
Well, it's because as fans, right, you can look at all these moves and, we're going to win it all, or we're killing it, or we're stinking it up. I'm, BC Lions, right? That's our team, America's team. And so I see the work that they're doing, and like Nathan Rourke, and we're signing another receiver, like, we're just going to be unstoppable. But then we have fans, your O-line is still crazy. Or you guys are still, spending money on that. So it's fun to be able to brag right now.
Sure. And what's cool about this time of the year too is games aren't won on paper. Obviously we know that, but you look at a roster like that and you're talking about BC and you're looking at all these receivers that they've already signed. And there's rumors going around that they might even offer to Kenny Lawler. Like, you're looking at all of these things and you're like, wow, they're going to be amazing. And then I love when you actually hit the field, and if it pans out, awesome. But sometimes they hit the field and you're like, oh, this is why football is not played on paper.
Yeah. As a Washington football fan, now the Commanders here in the NFL, very much anticipations for our defense is going to be number one, and it was 31st. So there's a lot of stories I want to get your thoughts about, but obviously you have a pulse of what is, maybe driving the most traffic or most important. What is high on your radar right now of storylines that you're tracking?
I think most of it is right now is the re-signings of players. Fans and myself included, is you're wondering, are we going to get our favorite players back? I know this morning Dylan Wynn re-signed in Hamilton, and I know that was a big piece that not only the front office there wanted, but also the fans. He was a fan favorite. So for us, and for me especially, that's what I'm looking at. Next week, I'll look at the guys that are going to be changing teams, but rumors are always swirling. There's reports about so-and-so maybe going here, maybe going there. To me, I don't know what's happening for that just yet. But when it's the guys that are actually re-signing to their teams and kind of what that means moving forward, that's kind of where my focus is until at least next Tuesday, when the free agency period opens at noon.
It's good for me, right? We hear a lot about, CFL and teams retaining players, right? Players wanting to be, but I see a lot of, fan favorites, good, hardworking players being re-signed in these places. I mean, it feels good to me seeing that, right? That maybe are we, transitioning more to that of keeping guys around that can help, sell tickets and sell jerseys and kind of sell all this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I've noticed this, maybe it's not a trend, but maybe it's just like my blind eye here, but I've noticed this year, a lot of guys have been signing 2-year deals, which I know in the past we've kind of talked about, which is why when the CFL, free agent list comes out, it's like 300 guys, because a lot of guys are signing those 1-year deals. So to me, I like the fact that I've seen a lot of these players that have re-signed in the last month or two, signing 2-year deals, not only for the fans, because then they'll want to go and support their teams and ticket sales, but it's also for merchandise. Like, I know I've seen guys be like, I don't want to buy a Chris Streveler jersey, and then he goes somewhere else or whatever it is, and then he goes to the NFL. But these guys that are committed to their actual teams, with that number and that nameplate and that jersey, I think that's awesome too, not only for the league as a whole, but also for fans, because even myself, I'm a sports fan too, and I don't want to buy a jersey of somebody on any team for any sport if I know that he's not going to be there for at least a couple years. So I think that's been really good, that I've kind of noticed that a lot of these guys have been signing 2-year deals instead of the 1 years that we've been kind of prone to seeing in the last few seasons.
Because it's hard. I mean, especially, me as an adult, like I can go buy a jersey, but if you're like kids watching, right, these kids that we want to attract, and you're like, God, I'm going to spend, $100 or whatever, and get these players. And then, at the end of the year, they're moving on. It's hard to, I mean, we love the brands, right? We love the teams, but you gotta have the players involved as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm the same way. And I mean, for me too, like I've become like a CFL fan. So if I'm getting, I don't know, somebody's jersey, like Kenny Lawler in BC or in Winnipeg, sorry, and then he goes to sign in BC, me as like a CFL fan and like a Kenny Lawler fan, I would be fine with that. But if you're just a Bombers fan and you bought that jersey after he had the year that he had and then he goes somewhere else, I totally understand why that would be a little bit disappointing. And as you mentioned too, if you're a kid that, saved up all his coins for the year and spent it on that jersey, it would be kind of disappointing too if he had moved on, if he had gotten his jersey already.
Top of the list of things I'm curious about, we are big McLeod Bethel-Thompson fans, right? Paul, my co-host, his team is the Argos. We came out earlier this year, called him the king of the CFL, and then he kind of, it didn't have the best start of the season, came back, ended really strong. I've seen people are excited that the Argos have re-signed McLeod, but then I see a lot of he was overpaid, or he shouldn't be there. They should find someone else. Where do you land on McLeod? And kind of, it's with this weird dichotomy. Am I alone in seeing that?
Yeah, for me, I think it was a great signing for Toronto for a few reasons. One, since Ricky Ray retired, I don't think that they've necessarily had a face to their brand in the quarterback position anyways. I know that they had, James Franklin there for a bit. Obviously, Nick Arbuckle was in for a little bit, but I don't think that they had that marketable face of someone who is true Argonauts football. And to me, MBT is that. I think that he fits in with the culture that pinball is trying to create. I think that he obviously has the on-field product. We've seen him. He led the league in touchdown passes in 2019. He was, I think, 6th in passing yards last year, and he didn't even play all of the games. He's the guy on the field. He's the guy off the field. And even just hearing from some of the other players on social media, or whether it be in other interviews, they all ride or die for MBT. So I think that he is that guy for Toronto, and I love the signing. I think they need one starting quarterback, not this 1A, 1B. That works for some teams, but I don't think it worked in Toronto between him and Nick Arbuckle. Obviously, they shipped Arbuckle out, but I think having just the one quarterback as okay, MBT, you're going into training camp, this is your team. I think, that's going to be good for the franchise, but it'll also be good for him, because I don't think he's gone into an Argos training camp as the number one quarterback. Maybe he was there as a competition a few of the years, but having him as that number one guy, I think is going to be great for the Argos, because obviously at the back end of the season, he was really good. I mean, minus the second half of the Eastern Final where the whole team kind of fell apart and Hamilton was able to come back with Dane Evans behind center. I think that MBT has shown that he's good for this franchise and good for the organization. So I'm really excited to see what he can do this year. I think that he's going to help them remain competitive for the top in the East.
Well, we talk about the face of a franchise. I mean, McLeod, my heart in McLeod owns a good piece of my heart here, someone that handsome man. It's good to see him, to see it in that way. Speaking of Evans, Dan Evans, Masoli, I've heard, right, Edmonton, he's bouncing around. He's going to Ottawa. Thoughts on Masoli's destination?
Yeah, so I thought a lot about this, even like before the rumors were coming out. I don't know why I had like a weird, strange inkling that he was going to Ottawa. I think the Sean Burke connection is very obvious. But maybe I'm like even stretching here, but I'm just thinking back in 2019 when Lapo was the offensive coordinator in Winnipeg, he had that 1-2 punch of like Zach Collaros who could throw, Chris Streveler who could run. And Jeremiah to me is a little bit of the best of both worlds in one quarterback. So if you can get somebody who maybe it's a different system in Ottawa, but he still likes that kind of quarterback, perhaps that's somebody that Lapo can kind of lean on because he knows the skill set of Masoli that he can run and he can also throw. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him signing in Edmonton. We all love Chris Jones, and he does some interesting things with his defenses, but also his offenses. So I wouldn't be surprised there, but I have a feeling he's going to be in Ottawa, which I think the Red Blacks fans should be super stoked about that because I'm a big Jeremiah Masoli fan. I love a mobile quarterback. So I think he's going to Ottawa, but again, this league is so weird and you think you know something and then 2 seconds later you don't. But yeah, maybe Ottawa. I think that's kind of where my thought process is.
Speaking of Ottawa, this Behind the R, right, this web series that they debuted, I assume you've got the chance to watch it. I think it was shared like right, and I just happened to see it right on Saturday when it was out, but tremendous. I mean, my opinions on it. What were your thoughts on that and the new way to engage fans and kind of this it's like a Hard Knocks CF. I mean, it is what it is, but what do you think?
I loved it. First of all, I love that kind of stuff as an avid sports fan and also as a casual sports fan, because you don't know those things that are going behind the scenes. You know they're happening, but to actually see and hear the conversations, I thought it was so well done. I think I sent out a tweet that I could have watched like 6 more hours of that. I was so disappointed there's only 7 minutes. I was like, give me more. But yeah, I think they did a really, really, really good job. And I would love if like other teams did similar things, if like their front office was open to allowing cameras in to listen in on those conversations, because it was great for me who loves the league, but it's also going to be great for a casual fan who just maybe stumbles upon it. And you're seeing the face, because what I like is seeing the faces behind the helmet. And I think that this is going to be a really great opportunity. Obviously, the first episode is about Sean and the GM role, but as they move forward, it's going to be a really great way to market the players who are behind the helmets. Because unlike the NBA, for example, like the NBA, you're there, you can see your face, but football players are wearing helmets. And it's really difficult to market those players when they're actually playing the game. So when you can get these kinds of things off the field, I think it's great for the league and also for these players who obviously want to get their names out there as well and market their own brand. So I'm very excited to see the next episode. I'm so sad that it's only once a month. I wanted it more than that, but it was really, really well done. And I really did love it.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I thought good length. I agree. As someone that does video, I'm like, that would be like, I would like it like every other week, right? But I'm like, God, that's a lot to like have to, we're recording the Zooms, we're going through. Thought it was a great length because and I remember years ago really having this tuned into me that, like you said, the marketing, it is the hardest sport to market the players because you do not see their faces. It's the only sport. You look at baseball and soccer and basketball, everything else. It's so hard to market individual, it's this mishmash of everyone running around, right? It's really hard for the casual fans. Yeah, I think it's tremendous. I think it's phenomenal.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see moving forward. And even like you look at the NFL, which is still football, but they're on such a big, grander scale that those are still, but even still, you think about like an entire NFL roster, a casual fan might know 3 of those players, the quarterback and maybe like a star receiver. So it's the same thing. So I am really excited. I can't wait to see their next episode, which I guess will be at the next Saturday in this month, which I'm pumped for.
Speaking of Edmonton, right? it's kind of like they're going from worst to first, right? You know, kind of some issues there last season. Now we're bringing in Chris Jones, we're bringing in Victor Cui, right? You know, we're re-signing everybody, building this culture. Maybe we get a Masoli. Thoughts on Edmonton and just really seemingly turning things around here pretty quick, at least on paper, like you said before the season.
Yeah, without like obviously not knowing to seeing the guys on the field, I think Chris Jones is good for the CFL period. He's obviously a incredibly intelligent coach, but I also think that he's another marketable guy that, you know, people either love him or love to hate him, which obviously drums out conversation. But I think having some, you know, fresh blood, if you say, in the front office with Victor, I think is going to be really great. I've already seen him really engaged on social media, you know, talking to fans and tweeting people. He's even tweeted me. Like it's really cool to see somebody in that high of a caliber of a position really engaging with the community, which I think is kind of what Edmonton is all about. And it's one of those things too, where this league, we've seen it a million times where a team will be at the bottom of the standings and the next year they're at the top. So I think they're already on their way. I know that they've re-upped Nick Arbuckle with a new contract. And if they bring in Masoli, that's another 1-2 punch. James Wilder, I think, is also a good one as well. He's obviously one of the better running backs in the league as well. So I think that the potential is all there. It's just a matter of kind of finishing those last little bows, if you will, or the cherry on the top of the cake. But they're building it, and it's coming. And I really like what they're doing. And I'm very excited to see how things shake out this year.
And we'll talk about it in the show here tonight with Paul when I record, but like I was on Twitter the other night, like you said, Victor, very interactive, right, with everyone. And I saw he had tweeted at someone like, hey, really cool Edmonton Twitter photo, whatever, banner. And he's like, where'd you get that? And the guy was like, oh, I've had it for a while. And Victor's like, well, I'm going to make some new ones for us. Like, let me know and I'll send it over. And I was like, that is the coolest thing, to have someone in power care enough to go online and be, hey, where did you get your Twitter thing? Like, that's awesome. Like, I want that. And I just thought, you would never get that sort of interaction in the NFL, right? And we hate comparing and all these things, but like, that is what the CFL needs to lean into, is people in power that can actually spend 5 minutes like talking with people online and interacting. I just thought it was the coolest little interaction that spoke a lot to him.
Yeah, for sure. And like, maybe like other guys like around our league aren't as like tech savvy. That also could be the case. Because like not everyone can do social media. I definitely understand that. But you're right in the sense that is what one of the things that makes our league so special, is that people in power are so accessible. Our players are so accessible. You've seen it. I've seen it. All of our players are always all over social media, talking with fans. Like, I've even seen some players like asking about like free agency. Like, where do you, like, I think it might have been Willie Jefferson earlier was like tweeting about where Jeremiah was going to be going, and then asking fans to like come in. Like, to me, that's like the special thing about our league, is that because we are so close knit and small, everyone can kind of chat with everybody, and we are all so accessible. So that's really great. And I do love that Victor's making those banners. Like, that's so cool. Like, what other president is going to be doing that?
Well, one more thought just on the Ottawa thing before we move on. Just, stuff like that. And forgive me, the video guy that did all that, the Ottawa, it's the Ottawa team videographer, but like, that costs no money. I mean, you have someone that's already like on, staff or partially, right, freelance, whatever, like, these things like that, it's just the time and effort, right? You're already having someone come in and kind of do that work. So things like that, Victor, all these little things that don't cost any money, and just, it means it shows shows the effort of caring and really trying to, do something different. Cody in Saskatchewan, right? Or Saskatchewan, I always say it wrong. A lot was made this week of his, taking the restructuring a little bit, whatever. I mean, is he the answer in Saskatchewan moving forward? What do you think?
I think so. Yeah. I think he's proven himself enough. I know some people say, he can't get it done in the big games, obviously losing in 2 Western finals in a row. But I think Cody is an excellent football player, and B, he's a team player. Like, that's what this restructuring is. Like, it's not a selfish move. Bo Levi Mitchell did the same thing earlier this year. It's a team player. And I think Saskatchewan is all in with Cody. And I think he's like right there. You know, like those are like, he's right there to making the next step and getting to a Grey Cup. I mean, 2 Western finals in a row is nothing to scoff at. So I do think he obviously is really well liked by the riders and Jeremy O'Day, but I think that he is that guy. He's a leader. I know he's a locker room guy. He's really big in the community. So I think that he is their future moving forward. And if they get a few of their pieces back, I know they obviously, like every other team, have a lot of pending free agents. But I can see them doing well again this year.
It's just scary seeing all the moves Winnipeg's making. It's like, well, this is going to be, Well, I saw someone say, "Oh, look at our coffee mug. We have the whatever." I'm like, okay, like let's, there's never. Before I let you go, are you surprised with the aggressiveness that BC has been making in the offseason, right? Getting presumably for Nathan Rourke, right? I know there's like rumors Trevor Harris is going to come in. What do you make of kind of this aggressive nature that BC is having in the offseason? I
like it. I mean, obviously after Michael retired, you're going to have a big chunk of salary open. And Nathan, I know, hasn't played a lot of games, but the ones that he has, he's looked good. And obviously the organization has a lot of faith in him if they've already called him the starter. And if they can get a vet like a Trevor Harris in the background there to kind of lead him and teach him things, and then also just spend all that money on your other players. I know they were able to get Burnham back. Obviously they had that big deal for Lucky. And then the rumors are swirling about Kenny. I love it. Be aggressive, bring in all the weapons that you think you need, especially that tells me that you believe in your quarterback who's making significantly less money than Michael was, obviously. But that tells me that you believe in him because you're not rushing to spend a whole boatload of money to get another QB. You can actually take some of that money and spend it on some of the other pieces. We talked about the O-line that definitely needs to be addressed as well, which maybe that is in the works right now, but the receiving core at least, I think they look great, and I'm excited to see how they pan out. I know that Nathan has been everyone's a big fan of him in that locker room, and I know he's one of those guys, we've heard it, shows up early, stays late, he works as if he is the number one, and that's all you can ask for, right? And if he's putting in the work, and we've seen what he can do, that last game against Edmonton, he looked amazing. So I think I like that they're being aggressive. I would always be aggressive if I was a GM. I'd be like trying to get everybody, but I really like what they're doing for sure.
Yeah, I'm just, and I don't know, where Amar Doman came in, mid last season, right? Now this is like, is that the edict, right? Hey, we want to be aggressive. We want to be a player. I mean, I don't know, right? But that certainly feels, I mean, I think it has to be at least, it's a non-zero connection there of him coming in last season, now moving into this season. Like, hey, we really want to like make an effort to be competitive and be in the mix and be relevant. I think more than anything, just to be relevant and not be out of it by the end of the season.
I know. And it's tough too, because I feel like last year they were so close. Like down the stretch, there were some games that they had lost that were just like 1 or 2 plays away from being wins. And so they are right there. And so I think if you're being a little bit more aggressive right now and getting those last little pieces that might set you over the edge, why not do it? This is the time of the year to do it. And having new, like Amar in there as well as new ownership is obviously great as well for the marketing side of the team as well.
It just feels like there's a lot of people right now that are involved in these teams that are really care and really making an effort and really like, working on deals and working on signings and working on, I like that as a fan being like, wow, it's sport, right? At the end of the day, it's sport, but it's nice to be like, man, they really like, they're going for it here. They really care. I would feel good if I was a fan. Before I let you go, last question. If a lot of teams making moves, any team, if you were a fan of that, you're like, hey, what are we doing here? That maybe aren't doing the moves that they need to be doing right now.
I just feel like Montreal has been kind of quiet. I don't know if that's like, maybe they're just waiting a little bit and then doing a surprise attack. But I was kind of wondering that the other day. I'm like, what's Montreal doing? Like, I know they didn't have as many free agents. They still had a lot as maybe some of the other teams. But I'm kind of curious what Montreal is going to do over the next week, at least until the free agency period opens. Maybe they're trying to go out and get a few other big guys who are pending FAs, but I haven't really heard too much about Montreal. That's my biggest question mark for sure right now.
Exactly. I was thinking the exact same thing. I was thinking, I'm kind of, I'm going through the map in my head and kind of going across, and I'm like, Yeah, I mean, we got Vernon Adams back on. I mean, that was obviously a lockup for them. But it did seem like since Vernon, and I guess we had Jeff Reinbold ride, and then Anthony Cavilla. So I mean, I felt like a month ago I was very high on Montreal, and now I'm like they're, it's like, what have you done for me lately?
Yeah, exactly. And that's very much what this league is all about. We all know this.
Well, I thank you. You've been so gracious with your time. We kind of rapid fire through everything here, but it's a good week. I think it's a lot of stuff to talk about. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, Kristina with CFL.ca, and we'll be tracking all year, and I assume your picks and stuff again, kind of heading into the season. So thanks again for your time.
Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks again to Jake Maier and Kristina Costabile for joining us here on the Markcast, talking to Reed, talking some good old CFL stuff. So with that being said, our CFL stuff is pretty much over at this point. We're going to move to USFL now.
Yeah, so this came out today. There had been all this, really quiet this week, right? We had the big Birmingham announcement last week and all the coaches and all that stuff. People really want player contract information. So they sent out some of the contracts tonight. That stuff's going to leak to the media. So I'm crediting UFL News on Twitter. He does the FCF News as well. He compiled all this. I was messaging people, and he just did a way better job kind of collecting all the information. So I want to make sure that he gets the credit. USFL News on Twitter. So this all came out. Training camp, you're going to get $600 a week. Practice squad, you're going to get $1,500 a week. If you're on the active roster, you're going to get $4,500 a week, 10 weeks. So $15,000 practice squad, $45,000 active roster, and then you get winning bonuses.
I have a question.
Yes.
Right here, there's a note that says room and board paid for by the USFL and free tuition, the bonus talked about. Yeah. I started to think about this recently and wondered, at what point is all of that taxed? The stuff they're getting for free.
That's a good point.
Are they going to get taxed for the free tuition bonus? Because technically they're receiving some kind of financial benefit, and the government could come and be like, hey, we're going to tax you on the income that it would pay to go to school. I don't know. That's a good question. I think that there are some people that are going to have their tax people busy figuring out exactly, hey, this free tuition thing, it actually is taxable. We're going to take some more of that money that you got when you're actively, or if you're on the practice squad. That's not a lot of money after all those taxes come in.
Well, and you obviously have to opt into that tuition. I mean, you have to. But this is good. I will say this. I had a lot of messages like, well, what do you think about all this? Because we have been negative about USFL. People have said.
Right.
This is very good. These are very good. I mean, obviously we want everyone to get paid more, clearly. Right. But like $45,000 for 10 weeks with preseason. I have some numbers down here. We'll get to the comparisons. This is very good. This tells me that the USFL wants to compete as a serious league, right? And the money that they're saving, doing the bubble, getting the free hotels, having everyone in the same city, all that stuff. I don't know what the coach is, right? If that transition to getting better coaches than maybe they would have gotten before, but this definitely is a very serious paycheck, I think, for a lot of these players. I think the players that I talked to today were very excited about the money that was involved in this.
Compared to XFL, the average salary was $55,000. The quarterback number one could get up to $250,000. The biweekly paycheck in the XFL on average was $2,080, and there's victory bonuses and all that stuff figured in as well.
Yeah, so you figure, $45,000. It could go anywhere up to I think it topped out like at $54,000. The player I was talking to with all the win bonuses and all of that. In comparison with CFL. So if you're playing 10 games in the USFL, $45,000. CFL is an 18-game season, right? 21 weeks. You're getting 65,000 Canadian or 51,000 US, right? So you're going to Canada, you're having a second home, you're doing all these things. USFL, that hotel, you're taking care of, room and board. You're paying for a lot of that stuff in the CFL. Obviously, they have stipends, right, that you can negotiate. But you see it's a competitive.
Yep, it definitely is. And Naylor's tweeting about that, specifically saying that he doesn't see anybody like the stars of the CFL going to the USFL. But, the average CFL salary, according to Jim Mullen, our friend of the show, is $95,000 to $98,000, I'm assuming Canadian, with hefty playoff bonuses.
Yeah, Naylor says, you're not, like you said, not losing stars, but maybe new incoming talent. You're not gonna fight them coming up across the border, right? They might just why would I go up there if I could just stay in Birmingham?
Exactly. Daryl Johnson said he's looking forward to competing with the XFL. He came out and said that in that April kickoff, he's trying to. That April kickoff is basically trying to avoid a head-to-head with the XFL. But there's going to be some weeks toward the end of the XFL season where they're going to be going up against the USFL. It's going to happen, and he's looking forward to that competition.
This came out as weird this week when he said that, because we were all assuming that these salaries are going to be a lot less for the players. But now if they are playing fair salaries, right, and that's really going to force the XFL to open up their pocketbook too. So
true. And then they showed a USFL promo. I'm sure you watched that one.
Yeah, the USFL, we had tweeted this out, that we had got the information that they were going to have a commercial that was going to air during the Rams-Niners game that got 50 million viewers, right? That Ed Hartman was quick to point out on Twitter. He's the XFL executive. It was like the guys at dinner at the restaurant. The people have like the call sheets on their arms, and then they have like the call sheet, the menu is the call sheet, and then like the players, the chefs transform into players, and it's like you got football on the brain. Very good commercial. I thought it was attention grabbing, and it said USFL kicking off. It actually had a voice. None of the other promos before then it was just text. So
cool stuff. On a related note to XFL and CFL news, former Hamilton head coach and former XFL Houston Roughnecks head coach June Jones recently turned down a job offer. Not recently, this happened weeks ago, and I don't know if we talked about it in the Markcast. We did. Mm-hmm. I didn't remember us talking about it.
Yes, okay, you can talk about it now.
I guess I saw an old article pop up on my feed, like on my little email alerts that. June Jones. I don't remember talking about this.
Yeah, they were going to give him only 2 years, and he said that wasn't acceptable to build.
And they were dictating who could be on his staff and stuff like that. I was going to be like, well, the head coach normally makes those decisions, but if we've already talked about it, we can move on.
That's okay.
Oh, your favorite?
Yeah, this was interesting. The fan controlled stuff. They're building the arena. I think we've talked about that before, right? That USFL, we haven't even announced our schedule yet. And fan control football is like, well, we're building our own effing arena. There was the drama this week with the jerseys. They came out with the season 2 jerseys for the season 1 teams, and people complained because they were all really ugly, but basically only enough Wild Aces people complained. So they're going to go back and change the Wild Aces, but none of the other ones.
Wow, interesting. And their NFTs went off without a hitch, right? Oh, wait, no, they didn't.
Yeah, it was. I heard that if anything, the positive note would be that there was so much interest in the NFTs that it crashed the system, right? That they couldn't maintain it. But you could also say, totally. You're asking people to invest a lot of money at that point. I mean, that's something that you need to weigh on you if you're going to ask people to buy these things through your league, and then if it's not going to fulfill.
Do we know what happened? Do we know what happened with any of that?
They were trying, like the free mints weren't working, and they were paying for some things, and they were getting charged, and it wasn't going through. And so Rob came out, he did say like we're shutting it down. We're going to make everybody whole. But it's one of those things like I would just do a season 2 first. I would just like get through another season.
They're trying to like get into the weeds with all this stuff, and it's only a way to make money, and it's not working. Just focus on keeping consistent rules week to week on your football. Sorry, but this is ridiculous. I'm sick of talking about these people.
When they started building the arena last week, I was very shocked. I'm like, what have you been doing since last February? I was very concerned with like.
I'm so tired of talking about these people. I really am. I'm sorry. I am tired of talking about these people.
Well, I will accept that. But at least we're not doing game breakdowns right now like we used to do. So.
Right. All right. We're going to land that on that note. This just exhausts me.
That's good.
Every time we talk about it, it's like, and there's people that defend this tooth and nail, like you can't see what's going on. I'm just so tired of seeing these people. I'm sorry. I'm just so tired of seeing them. I'm done.
I accept that.
With that being said, we want to thank you again for joining us. Again, like and subscribe. Share the podcast out with your friends. If you've got it on audio, do that as well. We're everywhere. Anywhere you can get a podcast, you can get the Markcast. You can also get it on YouTube, where we have some giveaways coming up when they get that subscriber count up. So please leave us a review, leave some comments. Reed's always active, trying to talk to you guys as much as possible. So again, like and subscribe to this podcast. And we will see you next week.
Thanks.